I want you to position your spirits for a personal move of God. Last week, I began to speak on the message, pressing into God's presence for change. And I said something that the Lord wanted me to deal with specifically. And He gave me instructions as to what to do. And so today is a day of deliverances if you would open up and allow God to do what He wants to do, because I'm stepping out here by faith to do what God tells us to do. And so last week I said, believers who are fed up with struggling with besetting sins press into the presence of God to have their nature and character transformed, because they realize that the Lord has the power to recreate their souls and renew the right spirit within them. Now, Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1 tells us to lay aside every weight and the sin that so easily besets us. And so the question is, what is a besetting sin? A besetting sin is the same thing as a generational iniquity or a habitual sin. A besetting sin is that thing that you do over and over again without ever getting the victory over it. Now, what happens when a person is beset by sin? When a Christian or unsaved person is beset by sin, it means that a demonic spirit or spirits of a particular sin or sins is standing around or hanging about that individual. In the natural, you will see people of notoriety like the president and movie stars. They're always moving around with a team of people that is there to protect them. Some people call them bodyguards, some people call them bouncers. And so what happens is when you are beset by a sin, that sin originates with a demon who is always moving about you. Wherever you go, that spirit is with you, or more than one spirit. Sometimes people have more than one sin that is influencing their lives, like people who gamble, they drink and smoke and steal and curse. So it's a group of spirits. Wherever you go, they are hanging about you, or they are surrounding you, or they are hanging on to you. And the reason why they're doing that is because they want to keep you in that lifestyle. Remember, Paul says that we wrestle not against flesh and blood. And we don't see demons with our physical eyes. It is only when the Lord removes the veil that causes not to see the supernatural, that you actually see what is hanging around you. So sometimes it's just one spirit, or it is more than one spirit that is there to see to it that you carry out the nature of that spirit. And so if the nature of that spirit is crime, that's what you'll do. If the nature of that spirit is anger and rage that causes you to fight and, to always want to beat up someone, you are going to do it because that spirit is there besetting you. It is hanging around you, or it is hanging on to you to make sure that you do the things that it wants you to do. Now, besetting spirits come about. Like I said, they're generational spirits, which means they come down through the generations. Sometimes you can inherit it through marriage. Because when you come into covenant, whatever the person you are married to, whatever is in their generations, you now become a partaker of that. So you just marry more than a tall, dark, handsome man who has the money to buy you a car and take you on a boat cruise. You're also inheriting spiritual things. Sometimes it comes with covenants when you decide this person is going to be my best friend. You make a covenant there, so you get it out of that. It comes through sexual intercourse. People that you sleep with, more than semen is deposited within you. Spirits pass through sexual intercourse or sexual intimacy, kissing and fondling and all that kinds of stuff. And so there are several ways in which we become beset by sin. And so we really have to be careful, even when we become members of certain churches. If you become a member of an unclean church, you're going to get what that church has. And so that's why it is so important that when you make the decision to align yourself or to keep company, sometimes it is who you just keep company with. You know, sometimes you say, well, I always like to walk the road with someone, so I wait on this particular worker to walk towards the subway. But if that person's life isn't right, what is with that person will join you. Because when we tell people goodbye, everything that was with us isn't leaving us. I remember years ago I was in a relationship with a pastor, and his younger sister was very mean and selfish. And we had discussed that quality that she had, and he had said, you know, it came from his father. But then when he and I broke up, I realized that I was experiencing selfishness. And I was like, where did this come from? I have never been a selfish person. And so the Lord said to me, for as long as you were in the relationship, the Spirit kept silent. It didn't manifest itself, but now it is over. The stuff that came with him, some of that wanted to remain with me. And so I had to take authority over that mean, selfish, unkind, uncaring, vindictive, revengeful spirit and send it back to hell. So if we're not careful, we are beset by spirits. That's why it's important for you to look around the floor that you are on and discern the spirits that are on the floor and make sure you guard yourself. You pick up spirits when you sleep in people's beds. I've gone to hotels and there were demons there waiting for me. I've slept in homes and in the night I'm being turned over by demons who is trying to find out who's the person in this bed, because we come at night to minister to the individual who sleeps here. Sometimes you rent houses and apartments that people lived in that was of a different way of life, and you've got to deal with those besetting spirits that are hanging around, either now to torment you or convert you. When you send money to ministries and you want to become a partner because it looks successful on television, but you don't know the spirit that is with that ministry, it releases because you're cutting covenant. You're saying, I'm a partner. The Bible tells us in Ezekiel chapter 18, verse 2, one of the ways in which we become afflicted by besetting sins, or we struggle to live holy. It says, the fathers have eaten sour grapes, and the children's teeth are set on edge. Now, what does the Bible mean when it says that my father ate something sour, or my mother ate something sour, and now my teeth are on edge? It is talking about the sins that my father committed, my mother committed, their parents committed, their parents before them committed. It is talking about the sins that are originating in your generations or in your lineage. Like, for instance, if we were Jews, we would have traced back our genealogy and said, well, I'm from the tribe of Dan. The Bible tells us that the tribe of Dan erected an idol image to worship, all the while the house of God was in Shiloh. So the Danites decided that they were going to practice idolatry. Now, idolatry opened the door for besetting sins or generational sins. And so Samson was from the tribe of Dan. And because of that, his life was afflicted with prostitution and whoredom, because a part of the worship in idolatry is prostitution, because every pagan temple has shrine prostitutes, both men and women, because that was a part of the worship of demons and devils. And so Samson struggled with something that his ancestors did. Obviously, there's always the power of God present to heal. When you realize that sin is crouching at your door, your first response is to pray and fast, confess the word, and seek God for deliverance. But the fathers eating the sour grapes means that somebody in your lineage has committed a sin against God that opened the door for demons and devils to pass through like a continuous door, one door. This generation, a generation is 40 years. So let's say 1940, 1980, he comes again, another generation, 120, 340s are 120. And it keeps coming down and coming down and coming down again. I remembered when I was first taught about generational iniquities. And I had looked at the way my mother had lived and my father lived, and I took authority over that nature that I felt would seek to influence my life. So it came a time in my life when every door was closed. But then when all the doors were closed, there were 2 times in America, in the state of South Carolina, the devil was able to get me to fail God by the way of idolatry. Idolatry is anything you put before God, anything you honor before God. And I only realized after I had sinned that I had sinned. I never saw it coming. I never even realized that what I was doing was sin. And so I began to seek God. It put me in a place where I need to find out how the devil can get to do this to me whenever he wants to do it, and I've closed every door. But shortly before I came to America, I had a discussion with my father, and I was asking him who his father was. And he told me his father was Guyanese Indian. Well, all my life, even now, I still consider myself black. Sometimes when I go to Guyanese churches, they look at my face and they say, "You're Indian." I say, "Well, where it is, please show me." They say, "Well, your cheekbone, your nose, your this, we can see Indian. We know you're Guyanese." I say, "Well, I don't know what you're saying, but I'm black like Kuta Kente. I don't know where to find the Indian. I can't be Indian, and yet still you have to use relaxer. So I'm not convinced that I'm Indian. I don't know what they see." But as I was seeking God as to why the enemy was able to do this, he said to me, "Remember your father told you that his father is Guyanese and that he's Indian? And the Guyanese are the Indians that wear the red dot in their forehead." So now God was showing me that idolatry is in my lineage from my father's side. And because that door was still open, the enemy then was able to come through that door to cause me, by blindsided, to do whatever he wanted me to do. And so when you are not aware of what comes down through the lineage, that's where the devil and the demons are going to hang around you, because they're coming for the generations. And so when the fathers eat the sour grapes, the Bible is talking about sins that were committed that you don't even know about long before you were born, that has given the devil the right to come after you. And so when it says now that the children's teeth are set on edge, it means that the devil has the legal right to come to any life on earth because of what somebody did 200 years ago or 500 years ago, and hang around you and influence you, bully you, pressure you, or hang on to you, either to push you into it or to bring that particular sin or iniquity to your life. That's why many believers are struggling to serve God. in their hearts of hearts, they want to live right, but they're finding difficulty to live right because they don't realize that they are beset by sin. There are demons hanging around them, and I'm not saying this to cause people to be paranoid or to give the devil any glory. I'm just exposing his activity. Because I have been, as I just said, afflicted by the devil because I didn't know that idolatry was in my lineage. And when you don't know where you come from, when you don't pay attention to the way your parents live, if it skip you, it's going to come down to your children. And so it is very important for us as believers to rise up and do something about it. Even our own sins, the things we did, not realizing what we are doing. And you give birth to children, and you are trying to figure out why this one is angry and why this one behaves like this, because you ate the sour grapes. That's why God uses the analogy of sour, because anything that is sour, you can't enjoy it. My gosh, nobody just don't suck on lime and say this is sweet like sugar. Anything that is sour, any fruit that is sour, you buy it cherries, you buy it plums, grapes, whatever. If it is sour, you're going to throw the whole bag in the garbage. Because sorrow literally sets your teeth on edge. It messes with your taste buds. Sometimes you have to go suck something sweet to get back things in alignment. And the Lord is saying, because of what the forefathers did. That's why some people have the propensity to lie or to be sexually immoral. Some people, they come to church and all they get is religion and not relationship, because there's something hanging around you that is seeking to stop you from serving God. And so the Lord began to say to me, I want you to tell my people about these besetting sins. I want you to cause them to be aware of the demonic activity. Yes, you are saved and sanctified like I am. Yes, you are a minister of the gospel. Yes, you preach the gospel. Yes, you don't intend to sin. Yes, every time you are tempted, you take authority over it. But they will not leave until you really know who you are dealing with, until you pray the prayer that would shut every door. That's the only way you are going to be delivered from a demon or demons that beset you. You have to identify the demon by the sin or character you have displayed. If you have hatred in your heart, if you are living right, but every now and again lust rises up on the inside of you. You feel like you would like to have a relationship. You like somebody to hug you or kiss you. And people tend to think, well, it's only natural. Sometimes that does not come out of what is natural. It is that spirit that is covertly and tactfully seeking to minister to you. Sometimes these besetting spirits bring disease and sickness that comes down through the generations because of what the person had done. Sometimes it comes as a result of the judgment of God. Remember the curse that God pronounced on Eli upon his lineage? Remember the judgment that God pronounced on David because of what he did? But he said down to the third and the fourth generation. So the judgment of God expires after a while. But Satan will still keep it going if you don't know that it is over. Additionally, Jesus Christ became the curse, that we don't have to live under a curse. And so God says, once you repent of the sins this demon made you commit against the Lord, or what your forefathers have committed, as Daniel did, you pray for deliverance or seek deliverance from the Lord, and then you close the door so that the demon cannot get to the other generations. And you stay free by keeping away from people and things that would ensnare you or give place to the devil to afflict you 7 times more. Because once God deliver you and you begin to play with the devil, or he's coming 7 times more. And if one time was that bad, you don't want it 7 times. So my assignment today is to pray the prayer of deliverance over your lives, that the door that has been opened, whether you know it or not. I didn't know idolatry was in my family until the Lord revealed it to me. To close those doors so that blessings and prosperity can come. Sometimes in the lineage, there are those who work witchcraft, voodoo, santeria, obeah roots, whatever you call it, that open the door. And then you find your children seem to be interested in mysticism. It's because those demons are hanging about. Sometimes the tattoo and the body piercings that somebody, God or you have, will open the door for your children's lives to be ensnared by the kingdom of darkness. And so God wants to shut those doors today. So I'm going to ask you to stand with me. And I want you to be a participant in what the Lord is going to do in your heart and in your life. As I believe that God will release his power to close every door, to shut down every curse, everything that seeks to beset you, everything that the enemy has tried to do against you and your family. We'll believe God today for that miracle and that blessing in Jesus' name.